Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for our first application season masterclass with the good folks over at the Huntin Fool. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Idaho and Alaska, OTC, and lottery tags. My name's Jack. I'll be kind of your host or your guide tonight before we turn it over to the fellas down there in Utah. Couple housekeeping items. Your audio and video are turned off, so we can't see you, we can't hear you, no worries there. If you do have questions you would like answered tonight, please use the Q&A box down below. There's a chat feature and a Q&A. Don't put them in the chat. The Q&A is just a lot easier for the couple folks we have in there answering questions. In the chat, things can just kind of get lost more easily. Do also want to mention, if you're not able to stick around for the whole time tonight, or there's information you want to go back and review later on, this class is being recorded and will be up on the onX Hunt YouTube channel sometime, depending how fast YouTube can get it uploaded, late morning, early afternoon. We'll have that up there for you. And we will be doing a giveaway for some onX swag tonight, so stick around to the end so that you can get answered or get entered into that. And with that, I will pass it over to Jared. How's it going tonight?
Good. We appreciate everybody joining. Again, my name is Jared Lyle. I'm the CEO here at Huntin Fool, and also I guess you would call me a part-time hunt advisor. I don't work as much in the trenches as a lot of my teammates do, answering questions and stuff, but I've also been a Huntin Fool member. I've been here for almost 7 years, been a Huntin Fool member for over 20. In addition to kind of our day-to-day opportunity to help our members and clients plan and execute hunts. We love these opportunities. I think my goal tonight, Isaiah's as well, I don't speak for him, but is to maybe inspire some people to take a chance on Alaska. If you've been sitting on the fence, kind of wanting to go, we think you should go as often as possible to Alaska. It's not as far out of reach as you think. We're going to talk about some of those options. We're also going to talk about Idaho tonight and their kind of tag debacle that takes place December 1 at 10 a.m. Mountain Time every single year. And I guess more than anything else, we just want to inspire people to go on more hunts with better information. That's what we're here to do at Huntin Fool. So
that's right. I'm Isaiah Joner. I was born and raised in Montana, relocated to Utah here about 6 years ago to work for Huntin Fool. I'm one of the lead advisors for our outfitter department. So my day-to-day is helping guys plan hunts, whether those are DIY or fully guided. I've had the privilege to hunt Idaho for about the past 6-7 years, some successfully, some not so successful.
Some tag soup.
And then also having the opportunity to hunt Alaska quite a bit the last few years. So hopefully we can help you out if you guys have questions tonight.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that I was kind of born, or not born, but raised in Idaho, 25 plus years. I'm a lifetime Idaho hunting license holder and also have spent a ton of time hunting Alaska too last few years. So again, it's a privilege of ours to be able to share some insights and hopefully inspire people to make some take some chances and go plan some hunts. With that said, we're going to dive right in. We probably have about 45 minutes worth of presentation material. Again, you're going to have that live Q&A going on. We've got a hunt advisor, Stan Upson, is out back there answering questions for you in that. And then we're also going to do live Q&A at the end of this. So if there's any questions that come up, shoot them into that Q&A or hang around and we'll try to answer those at the end. The Idaho earlier go on sale December 1 at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. They become available for the following year. So Idaho is your first opportunity to jump on a tag. It's more of a draw than OTC. They still consider it OTC, but the reality is when we talk about how this process works, Isaiah's going to share some on that. It's more of a draw. The quotas have already been established for 2023. The regulations will probably be released in April of 23 for this upcoming year. But a few terms that I think are worth covering are the word cap or capped zones, limits, and quotas. So caps refer to zones, and specifically in elk, that have a total amount of a quota for residents and non-residents both. Limits, on the other hand, apply strictly to non-residents and their relative available portion of tags in any given elk zone or deer unit. And then finally, the quota refers to the entire amount of tags that are set aside for both elk and deer. That's your like statewide quota.
That's right. As Jared said, the OTC, first come, first serve, has turned into more of a draw the last couple of years. And what that's going to look like is if you are going to log in on your computer, they have virtual waiting rooms that open up at 9:30. And basically you get online, log in there, and then you're basically just sitting and waiting. And then at 10 a.m., once they do open that up, you are going to get assigned a random number, which is going to be anywhere from 1 to upwards of 17,000. So once you get that number, you are in line and about ready to jump into the queue. So you will want to create an account, and you must have an account in order to participate online. It's pretty simple. If you have one currently, make sure you go in and have your login information. So come December 1st, you're not scrambling to try to make that happen. And then there is no need to purchase any licenses or applicable permits before that time. Once you do add a tag or permit to your cart, it will drop in the hunting license and an archery stamp or anything you do need. So it will add it at that time to the cart. And another thing is you do have limited time once you do get items into your cart. So you want to be sure that the tag you have is one you want, and you want to be ready with all your information, because we've seen it from 5 to 15 minutes is the time limit they give you before they'll kick you. Basically, they'll kick those items out of your cart and you have to go through the shopping experience again.
The term experience is used loosely here. It's not very much fun, but
yeah, so that's how a majority of people are going to go after tags December 1st. You can also purchase those in person at a licensed vendor, whether it's in the state of Idaho, some of the adjoining states, Wyoming, Montana, Washington. Some of those closer towns to Idaho do sell Idaho tags, so you might be lucky to be able to go in person and get them there. And then if you do have a actual fish and game office, you can go to those to purchase those tags. I know people last year were camping out in line the night before at some of those locations. Fish and Game this June, when the resident tags went on sale, we're not allowing that. So you're going to a Fish and Game office and planning on camping out to get your tag first thing in the morning, don't plan on that. You might want to go crash a Sportsman's Warehouse or something.
nothing like getting tear gassed on the Fish and Game land.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that is the better way if you and a group of buddies are planning a hunt to quote unquote do a party app. You will want to do that in person, because once you do get brought up to, basically once the cashier logs you in, you can add multiple tags to your cart for other people and then do have a checkout. And you cannot do that online. Basically, once you check out online, it kicks you out of the system and you have to get back in the queue. So it makes it very difficult if you and buddies are trying to plan a hunt together to get the same tag, because a lot of other people are going for those tags. So the quicker access to get some of the better tags will be in person. And so you might consider making a trip to a licensed vendor.
Yeah, and a couple things there. I didn't touch on it in the last slide, but tags are essentially exempt from this non-resident limit that has been set up. So the good news is, if you're a parent and you're wanting to take, or an uncle or whatever, and you're wanting to take a youngster on a hunt in Idaho, for the most part, they bypass the quotas, the limits, and also on the deer side of things, unlike a non-resident where you have to pick a single game management unit to hunt, your youth tag, you can take that youth all over the state and hunt any general season tag. So it's still a good opportunity. When Isaiah was talking about party, it's a good opportunity for you to be able to hunt with a youth. One thing that we also want to touch on before we go off of this slide, if you want to do a party app when you're in the online version of this, the only way to do it is honestly, like, let's say Isaiah and I wanted to get the same elk zone together. We both get assigned our random number at 10 a.m. I might be number 500. He might be number 5,000. I can sit in there. There's a limited amount of time once I put a tag in my cart to check out, but I can sit in the queue indefinitely while we're waiting for Isaiah to finally come online. Isaiah finally comes online. We're on speakerphone together. Isaiah's like, hey, there's 8 limb high zone tags left. And he goes ahead and buys one. And then I can immediately go ahead and execute my purchase right behind him. So there is a way to game the system a little bit, but the first person in has to sit and watch all the tags dwindle away, maybe to 0.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to assume that most people are going to do the online version. That's how we personally buy most of our tags. This is what it looks like. This is an actual screenshot from Idaho Fish and Game website. It basically tells you how many minutes you have to complete your transaction, what your number in line is, how many people are ahead of you, and your estimated wait time. That estimated wait time can change drastically, so I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't stand up when it says you have an hour to go and go off and start a work project and come back an hour later, because it may have accelerated and it may have only been 20 minutes. And again, the tags go on sale December 1, 10 a.m. And the big pro tip we'd like to drop here is you do need to decide on your elk zone or your deer GMU. Again, for non-residents, you have to decide on one of the 28 elk zones or a specific deer unit ahead of time. And pro tip is I usually try to have A, B, C, and D on deck, because more often than not, you're going to get a high number and what you wanted to get is not going to be available at the time of purchase.
That's right. Yeah, so December 1st, basically you're going to have, well, the quota for elk tags in Idaho is set at 12,815. Of those, about 9,200 of those will go on sale December 1st. They do hold another 2,900 aside that are reserved for outfitter allocation, and basically those are guaranteed tags that the state gives outfitters to book clients with. So of the 12,000, you're going to see about 9,200 of those be gobbled up in the general elk zones. Those zones, basically now they're capping them at 10 to 15% for the non-resident limit. These are unlimited resident tags, and basically they've done hunter survey to see how many resident hunters have been hunting those zones over the past years. And then they cap the non-residents to 10 to 15% of those. Then, as Jared mentioned, the capped elk zones, those are a little more level playing field because they are capped for residents as well as non-residents. And so basically they're not going to be as crowded of an area. So those tags are usually a little higher demand. From what we've seen, they will sell out typically a little quicker. So, and then if you don't know a zone, as again, there's 28 elk zones in the state of Idaho, and basically those are a unit group that make a zone. Most of them have 3 to 4 units inside of them. So you do have a good range of topography terrain to look from, whether you want an easier hunt or you want to do a pretty extensive pack and hunt. You will have some good opportunities to look at there inside those zones. And one thing I will say, if you do get lucky and you get a tag come December 1st, you've already purchased your hunting license, so it's worth applying for the controlled hunts, which will pop up later in the year. And those are a lot of the more desirable units or dates. And it's like $15.
Weapons.
Yeah, weapons, $15 application for that later on in the year. Get lucky, Idaho is a random draw state. So if you do get lucky and pick up one of those tags, you can swap out your current general tag for that controlled hunt, or you can keep the current general tag you have and basically forfeit the controlled hunt, and they'll put that back into the second draw. And of most of the tags in Idaho, there's A tags and B tags. Again, if you look in the regs, the A tags favor the archery opportunities, B tags favor the rifle opportunities. And in some of those zones, they do have a good archery season and a shorter rifle season. So you do have the option to hunt both seasons.
Yeah, and they'll also often have like a muzzle loader,
Yeah.
like a traditional muzzle loader cow elk hunt attached to them or whatever else too. So there's quite a bit of opportunity with both A and B tags. One thing too that we want to note is You can exchange your tag for another zone if the quota is still open, but don't count on that. It's pretty much not going to happen.
Yeah, the ones that are still open are
Yeah.
very desirable.
Yeah, don't go hunt the Snake River zone. Do yourself a favor. All right, deer are handled much the same way in Idaho. They have a statewide quota of 14,000 of what they call regular deer tags and 1,500 whitetail deer tags. The big difference being on the regular deer quota, for the most part, you can kill either species with a regular deer tag, providing that the unit that you're hunting has both species in it, and a lot of them do. Idaho has a pretty good healthy whitetail population in major portions of the state. Generally speaking, the regular deer quota is going to sell out like that. Again, it's a little bit more favorable. And then that whitetail quota takes a little bit longer, but don't sit around thinking that you can buy a whitetail tag a month down the road like it used to be a few years ago. If you want to get a tag, you got to get a tag right away on either one of those tags. Again, it is unit specific for non-residents. You have to pick a specific unit to hunt. Whereas it's statewide for any of the residents, and then you can only hunt that unit that your tag is good for. Again, you can also exchange the tag for another unit if the quota is available, but I would not count on that. And finally, like Isaiah said, it's $18 to apply for a controlled hunt. Idaho has a pile of rut rifle hunts, late muzzleloader hunts, just some phenomenal draw tags. For $18, it's worth applying. And then if you draw the tag, you can choose to keep the general tag you have or choose to exchange it into the controlled hunt. And then finally, you can hunt any available and open seasons in the unit that are general season. Again, non-controlled hunts. If you got a general tag, you can hunt archery, muzzleloader, rifle, any of those, providing that you have a permit to hunt those specific hunts like archery and muzzleloader. You got to have the stamp for it. And then they also have to be general seasons, not controlled hunts.
Right. One thing to note in Idaho with muzzle loaders, they are very traditional use muzzle loaders. So do not plan on taking a scope long range one up there and getting away with it. So
no, it's as old fashioned as it gets.
Yeah, don't forget, if you do miss out on a tag opportunity December 1st, or you don't get something that you were hoping for, there are a pile of return tags that go back on sale throughout the year. Idaho basically at sometime early spring, anyone that's turned a tag back, they will basically reissue those again, first come, first serve. They'll give you a sneak peek on, I think it's like a Tuesday of the week is how it's been in the past. They'll show all the tags and the zones of they're available or units they're available in. And then say 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, those tags will go back on sale, first come, first serve. And you have to be just as quick because everyone that missed out is trying to get one during that time frame.
Yeah, and that is one thing we didn't mention earlier. Load your credit card information into your browser so that you can be faster in the checkout process as well. That's a little tip as well. All right, we're going to move to Alaska. Again, we'll have Q&A open at the end of this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions on Idaho, but we're going to move into Alaska at this point in time. One of the key reasons we're covering Alaska right now is because the draw deadline is December 15. And we get a ton of questions. Should I be applying in Alaska? I think I would kick it off by saying most people associate a draw with trophy potential, and nothing could be further from the truth in Alaska for the most part, especially for moose hunts. Realistically, what Alaska is trying to do with their controlled moose hunts is prevent non-residents from overcrowding residents and not getting the resident freezers filled. So a lot of the roaded areas in Alaska, Anchorage, that all the way up to Fairbanks, etc., a lot of those are draw tag only for non-residents, and it's essentially only trying to reduce non-resident crowding and pressure. So for the most part, those units typically produce smaller bulls because it's so hard. Again, residents are out there in high abundant numbers. I've hunted those areas a couple times personally myself. There's moose buggies and the craziest contraptions you've ever seen in your life running around out there harvesting moose. And the residents can even kill spike bulls in a lot of those units. So it's a meat hunt, not a trophy hunt. Having said that, it's one of the few places that you can logistically get around with a vehicle as opposed to airplane or air taxi or water taxi of some kind that we'll cover later. So should you apply in Alaska is the short version here. The answer for the most part is no. In our opinion, there is no point system in Alaska, so you don't get penalized for sitting out. You are required to have a valid hunting license in order to apply. And it does have a unique system in that you can put up to 6 choices in one hat per species. So if I wanted a particular moose draw unit or mountain goat, then I can put all 6 of my choices into one, or I can spread it across 6 different draw areas. So anyway, generally speaking, unless you're an outfitter, so in the case of like Dall sheep, there are some draw units that typically produce slightly bigger sheep sometimes, but that's a conversation to have with your outfitter. So we always tell everybody, if you're going to hunt the guide only species, talk to your outfitter first and find out if you should be applying. Otherwise, unless you have a buddy in Anchorage like I did, don't apply for the moose hunts either. You're better off figuring out an over-the-counter or registration hunt, which is our segue into registration hunts. So registration is essentially an over-the-counter tag. Some of these registration hunts can be done online. Some have to be in person. Some have to be done in person after a certain date. And in some cases, they have to be done at department offices. So the bottom line is that it's kind of an unlimited number of permits, but it is a different method of acquiring them than true over-the-counter harvest tickets, which you can do online or at a licensed vendor. And these can literally be printed online. They're free, quote unquote, because next step, you've got to buy a locking tag in order to be legal to hunt in Alaska. And it's a literal physical metal tag that you're going to attach to the animal after you harvest. And so these locking tags can also be purchased online or at a licensed vendor. I think one of our last slides, we talked about the fact we highly recommend purchasing them in advance, because if you go to a licensed vendor, they have a limited quota of these sometimes, and we have seen cases where they're out of locking tags for the species that you're after. Also important to note that hunting license and locking tags are calendar year items, January 1 to December 31, whereas your harvest tickets, more often than not, and they correspond to your bag limits, they're a regulatory year. So for example, a black bear, you might hunt a black bear in the fall, and then that spring, the same harvest tickets are valid for the fall and the spring, the following spring, but your locking tag would no longer be valid in that case. So just, it's, you got to keep your ducks in a row there.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing.
It does.
I'm still you.
Oh, all right. Well, first we're going to talk about guide required species. We get this question a ton, and in this particular case, I want to be super clear. Dall sheep, mountain goat, brown bear, and grizzly bear, there are no options for a non-resident to hunt without being accompanied by a licensed guide under a contract with an outfitter, unless you have a first degree of or second degree of kindred. So basically a parent all the way through a mother-in-law. You guys, again, you can look at this later. I won't go through all of the details for it, but basically you have to have immediate family in Alaska who are residents. In that case, you could bypass this requirement. Outside of that, you're going to be on the hook for a contract with a registered outfitter.
But I'm not lucky enough to have family up there.
No, I keep trying to move up there myself.
And then the species that do not require a guide are bison, muskox, Roosevelt elk, moose, caribou, black bear, black-tailed deer, wolf, and wolverine. And of those, for the bison, muskox, and Roosevelt, those are all by draw only. Again, December 15th is when you have to apply for those. The draw odds are not very friendly, and you will most likely still have to hire some type of outfitter or transporter for those hunts. And again, the moose, caribou, black bear, over-the-counter tags, no draw required for most of those. Again, there are a few, but there is an over-the-counter opportunity, along with the black-tailed deer, wolf, and wolverine. So
This is you again.
all right. When you go to Alaska, you need to know that there is not only the tag fees associated with it, but transportation up there. There are not a lot of road systems. So you're going to be looking at some sunk costs into flights. Super Cub is the cheapest option, but it can only hold one person up to 300 pounds. The Cessna 206, which is pretty common, They'll run those on floats and wheel planes. They can hold up to 3 people, around 750 pounds. And then the beavers, they can hold around 4 to 5 people and 12 to 1400 pounds. And basically a lot of those are associated at per hour cost. So again, you're looking at about 500 for the Cub, 750 to 1,000 for the Cessna, and about 11 to 1,300 for the Beaver. And again, those are, whether it's an air taxi service or an air transport service, basically this is how they're going to base their fees, are usually per hour. So then over here, again, I won't run through it, but like Jared said, if you are going to hunt Alaska or apply, you do need active hunting license there. A lot of times if I'm planning to go to Alaska to hunt, I will also throw on a fishing license. You can do like a 7-day or the annual.
Mhm.
And it's worth it to have it up there because it has some of the best fishing in the country. So another thing to note is you can tag down in Alaska. So let's just say you're going to Kodiak Island. There's a small chance you could run into a caribou out there on the south end. You could buy a couple deer tags and a caribou tag. And say you did not run into a caribou and you could use that same tag to tag down on a black bear or another
Not
deer.
a black bear, a black tail.
Well,
There aren't any black
black-tailed
tails
deer.
on black bears on Kodiak.
They all got 8.
Yeah, exactly. They don't do well in the brown bear population.
Also, anytime going to Alaska, you do want, I mean, you might think you have everything planned out as far as budget goes, but what I found, and Jared has found at going up there multiple times over the last couple of years, is it always ends up being more than you expect. You know, whether it's shipping meat, you know, your charter gets delayed somewhere and you have to stay in a hotel for an extra 2 days, or food, U-Haul getting gear around, like everything add up there. And so I would plan an additional $1,000 to $2,000 on your hunt to make up for that extra cost.
Yeah, I think that's minimum. And then one thing that we didn't quite mention was that there's a difference between an air taxi and an air transporter. An air taxi is just point A to point B. You say, I want you to fly me from X to Y location, and then you pay that plane both directions. That's one thing people misunderstand too. It's like, well, they'll tell you, it's like, well, that's a 45-minute flight. And so you're thinking it's 45, but it's actually an hour and a half that you're paying for. And then an air transporter is actually going to include some logistics and gear with it. It's a more concierge service, but they cannot technically help you with the hunt. Like they couldn't even look out the window and go, hey, look guys, there's caribou we're flying over right now. They can't do that kind of stuff, but they can definitely help you logistically. Okay, Dall sheep are obviously kind of the pinnacle animal in Alaska, and unfortunately Dall sheep have not done well the last, well, a couple winters ago they had a massive winter kill, especially down in the Alaska range. A lot of guides and outfitters are currently cutting back on the number of hunters that they're taking. Success rates have gone down a little bit.
Yeah, I think this year was the worst it's ever been in the last 10 years as far as overall outfitted hunted success.
Yep. So it's not a pretty picture right now, especially when you look at the fact that a guided hunt is going to run anywhere between $20,000 and $31,000, and that you're going to have to book 2+ years in advance. So the picture for Dall sheep is tough. The budget is tall. And additionally, as a final kind of kick in the teeth, there's very few horseback hunts. The vast majority of Dall sheep hunts in Alaska require you to be in great shape. So grease up your boots if you're going to go, and also beware, ask very specific questions, or call us, call Isaiah, and ask questions before we book a hunt, because we want to make sure if you're going to spend that kind of money that you're actually going to have a really good shot at killing a good ram.
That's right. And if you're still looking for that mountain experience, mountain goat is a great alternative to that. The hunts are not as much money and the goat population is doing well. Again, this is a hunt you have to go through a registered guide with or with a family member. Right now, the guided hunts are running anywhere from 10 to 17, 20+ thousand dollars. And that's due to the different styles of it. Like a basic backpack style hunt, you're going to be closer to that 10 to 12 range. If you're going off a boat based to where you're little more cush. You're staying on the boat, you're glassing goats up on the mountain. Those ones are going to be your upper end that are going to be peaking over the $20,000 mark. And then your drop off hunts are going to be again down there in that 10 to 15 range. So lots of styles there. Like I said, they do have some easier hunts where you can hunt them from the boat down like southeast stuff. Kodiak's pretty high demand right now. There are draw and registration hunts on Kodiak. And so a lot of guys want that Kodiak experience where they can go up there and double up on a deer. And so those hunts have been booking further out in advance, but they're an amazing animal to hunt. They live in incredible places. And so it's another alternative if you can't afford a sheep hunt.
And again, since you're going to have to go outfitted, it's important to ask your outfitter whether or not they want you to apply in the draw or not. There are a lot of draw goat hunts. In this particular case, Isaiah and Sierra killed these two awesome billies on a hunt we did together. It's on our YouTube channel. If you want to go, I'll give that a little shout out. Go over and take a look at that. It's a great hunt. It really illustrates a lot of the logistics we're talking about in Alaska. That was a draw hunt. So talk to your outfitter in advance and find out whether they want you to apply in the draw or whether you need to. All right, brown grizzly bear. Alaska makes no distinction between the two. When you buy a locking tag for a brown bear, it's good for a grizzly bear as well. These hunts for brown bear are running $20,000 to $35,000. The prices just continues to rise. As you can see on this slide, anything below the blue line is considered a brown bear, and anything up north of it is considered a grizzly bear. Interior grizzly hunts are 16 to 22K. Again, like we talked earlier, can't stress enough that there's additional costs in Alaska. Not only can you look at this and see that there's going to be a fairly significant tip associated with it, but there's always all these additional logistics of getting around out to small locations on the peninsula or up to the interior, up north of the Arctic Circle, etc. Contrary to what those who would like to shut bear hunting down say, Alaska has a super robust bear population, excess of 30,000 animals estimated, with only 1,900 harvested a year. Super fun hunt. Like, I love hunting big giant bears.
This is probably the icon of Alaska here, the moose. Again, there is not, you are not required to go with a guide here, though it's recommended in a lot of cases, but there are self-guided options. Right now, guided hunts are running in that 25 to 35,000 range. You're going to want to book them a couple years in advance. And then you are going to have options for self-guided drop-off, float hunts, or more of a boat rental. And those are going to range in that $9,000 to $12,000 range. And a lot of that a lot of the cost in there is depending on what you're doing, the transporter is going to provide you with flights in and out of the field. They're going to provide you with the gear, sometimes a night stay on each end of your hunt, so you can, go through your gear, make sure your meat's all taken care of, tents, cots, axes, everything you need. So a lot of those are really set up for the DIY guy to bring minimal gear to Alaska with him and go on the hunt. So the drop off, a lot of times you're getting dropped on lakes or ridge tops, and you're going to have a stationary camp to where you aren't going to want to venture more than a mile to shoot a moose. It becomes
do a lot of calling, not a lot of walking.
Yeah, it becomes a lot of work. Pretty much every area in Alaska requires you to keep the meat on the bone until you are out of the field. So you cannot break down a moose quarter any further than literally knocking hoof off the joint. And then you have 130 to 150 pounds, and that's what you have to pack. So keep that in mind, that it's a lot of work. The float hunts are a little more for the Lewis and Clark syndrome guy, where you are going to be going down a river system sometime upwards of 100 miles over the 10-day period. But there is a lot of work that goes into that, from setting up and taking down your camp each day. If you do get a moose down, you're going to have to get that moose meat out of the boat, hung up in trees, so it's not going to spoil. So there's a lot of work associated with the float hunts, but they are fun in that you're seeing new country every day, and you can hunt like every day is your last day because you're moving on. You're not spreading your scent everywhere. And then there are some opportunities for boat rentals, which is a unique opportunity to where you're basically just renting a boat, motorized boat, and fuel for the duration of the time you're up there. And so it gives you the opportunity to get around, check areas out, and you can be, pretty comfortable with bringing quite a bit of gear on that one. So,
Is that what you're planning on doing this year?
no, I'm planning on doing a drop off. So,
Okay.
still trying to figure out whether I want to do a lake or a
Bridge stuff?
float hunt, because I'm not very good at sitting still and being patient. I don't want to sit 5 days in one spot waiting for a moose to show up. So, but that is the reality of it. Even though the moose populations in Alaska are doing extremely well right now, they estimate up to about 200,000 across the state. These hunts are usually low sighting hunts on these DIY ones, because you might even be able to see moose, but they might not be where you can kill them. So don't go up there planning on seeing multiple bulls a day and being able to sort through them and pick what you want. You need some patience and a lot of luck.
Yeah, I would add two things. Again, on the float hunt note, I've done multiple, 6 to 10 day float trips that were not really hunts. And even that, like I floated the whole middle fork of the salmon a couple times, the main salmon river in Idaho. And honestly, the amount of work that goes into setting up and tearing down camp every day, there's a lot of romance associated with a float hunt. We get that question a lot. Think very carefully before you get involved in that, because it adds a factor of work that's a high multiple. So we're going to talk about caribou next. We get a ton of interest in this. Bunch of us have gone on these sort of drop camp caribou hunts the last few years. Again, shout out to our YouTube channel. We do have a few of these hunts filmed, including a gear dump, I believe, on this, which is super important to understand exactly what you need. Unfortunately, there was a federal overreach a year ago that shut down hunting for caribou in large part around the Kotzebue area, which is one of our favorite areas to recommend, just because logistically and quantity wise, it's been a great hunt. The state of Alaska is currently embroiled in fighting that, basically saying, hey, it's our caribou, we can manage this. We don't need the federal overreach stepping in and saying that the 300 caribou a year that the non-residents were killing was too much. So there's kind of a nasty situation going on there. Again, we always keep everybody updated on that in our publication. If you're an onX Elite member, friendly reminder to take advantage of your Huntin Fool digital membership. It's single sign-on. You easily transfer straight in. You can read our eMag. The December issue is chock full of all this information we're talking about, both Idaho and Alaska. And we do cover, kind of the caribou stuff. We keep our membership updated on where it's at. Having said that, there's a great population statewide, almost 1 million animals. Go caribou hunting while you can. There's still some areas that you can kill 2 caribou, very few, but and again, guided hunts, you're looking at 13 to 15K. The drop camps are 6 to 7. We're being conservative there. Honestly, to book with a transporter, it's not quite that. We've done these so many times that we know pretty much exactly what those cost. And so that's a conservative number for once in Alaska, that you can really do it for that kind of money per person.
Yep. Another one that's been gaining a lot of traction over the last few years is the Sitka Blacktail. These are going to be mostly take place in Kodiak or Southeast Alaska. Again, no, there is not a guide requirement on the blacktail species. There are some great guided opportunities that are going to be in that $500 to $7,500 range. But a big one is the self-guided or transported boat-based hunts on Kodiak. They're great fun hunt. You're looking about $5,000 a hunter on those, week-long adventure. Not only can you pick up 3 deer tags in that area, you also have amazing fishing up there. Most times we go, we're bringing back 50 to 100 pounds of fish each, halibut, rockfish. So incredible trip. And those boat-based ones are nice. They're more on the glamping side of things because you're staying on the boat. It's nice to come back to a warm boat after a long day and be able to dry out, have a hot meal. They're very comfortable. If you don't like camping with lots of bears, the boat option is the way to go. So there is also some drop-off opportunities. Again, where a transporter will take you in the field, drop you off for an extended period of time, and that will be based out of a tent cabin. And you're going to have fairly limited mobility for that. Basically, you're going to be day hunting from your campsite. So again, Kodiak, Southeast are going to be your options for most of those hunts. And like I said, right now, you can still harvest 3 deer as a non-resident in those areas. They have talked about reducing that down to 1 or 2 tags, but we're hoping they just keep it at 3.
All right, there's tons of black bear options in Alaska. We're not going to go into all of them. There are some draw only tags, most notably in Southeast Alaska, Prince of Wales, Kuyu Island, etc. Again, if you're going to do a DIY hunt, you're going to have to apply in the draw. There are no points, as we previously stated, so it's just kind of getting lucky on an annual basis to try to and again dump all 6 of your choices into one hat if you're going to try that route. My favorite way to hunt them, and the main thing we're going to cover here today, is just like Isaiah said with the blacktails. It's a self-guided boat-based hunt. Again, it's a glamping trip. I kind of say that it's like a wall tent on water. So it's not, it's not super it's not cush accommodations necessarily. I mean, there are some that are more, I guess, yacht-like, but for the most part, the boat trips that we like are ones where, the boat's a working boat year-round, catching fish, etc. You sleep in bunks and you hunt copious numbers of black bears from the shore. Again, it's transported, which means they cannot guide you. They can't even point out a bear on the shore. But we've done this hunt. I've done this hunt a couple times. It's an incredible trip. The fishing is generally better that time of year because it's a spring. It's like May, early June. And again, huge population of black bears. The cost is incredibly cheap. I mean, you're looking at like about $4,000 a hunter. And if you can gather up 6 buddies, usually for around 6 people, you can book an entire boat. So you don't even have to be on there with strangers. So it's a great trip. Highly recommend it. In the case of both the Kodiak and the South, any boat-based hunt, weather rules the roost. These are big boats. They're usually somewhere between 40 and 65, 70 feet long. But at the end of the day, they're still subject to if the weather is absolutely nasty. So you got to listen to your captain. Some days you're going to run from the wind. Some days you're going to hide from the wind. Trust your captain. Don't get too disappointed or hung up on a particular area you want to go hunt, because they're going to look at the weather and they're going to say, hey, if we go there, we can't even get on shore because you're going to have 8-foot seas crashing on the shore and we can't even put you on the beach. So trust your captain in those cases.
That's right. All right, kind of as a wrap up here on Alaska, as you've heard us state multiple times, there are a lot of logistics that go into planning an Alaska hunt. One thing that we've started to do over the last couple of years is shipping our gear ahead to a destination, a friend, cargo, your outfitter, and basically you can do that through like Alaska Air Cargo or another cargo service. And if you have a couple 100 pounds of gear, it's a lot cheaper to go that route to get it up there versus trying to fly up with it. And it's made life a lot easier. Again, you kind of have to plan ahead and have someone up there that can pick it up or, have it shipped to your transporter. Alaska runs on Alaska time. It is a real thing. Weather is a huge factor up there. So you want to be flexible on your schedule and not be too impatient with your transporter or your outfitter, whatever it may be, because weather can hold you down for days on end. And so a lot of times when we go up to Alaska, we won't even book a return flight until we're back out of the field, and knowing that we will be back in Anchorage on such day, and then you can go in and get your ticket back home. But a lot of times I don't think I've been to Alaska once where it's been seamless.
Flawless. No.
And so keep that in mind. Another thing to consider is meat care and preparation. Kind of have a plan ahead of time on what you want to do with your meat. If you do not want to bring your meat home. Again, like on moose, they're extremely large animals. You're looking at 500 to 600 pounds of boned out meat. That is a lot to ship back. You might consider, again, looking at cargo transportation, air cargo cooler services like that, where it's about $1.50 a pound to ship back, or getting the right paperwork in place before you go up. For donation, there are lots of places in Alaska. A lot of these little villages do appreciate any meat they can get their hands on. There are donation centers you can call and arrange for pickups, but there are forms you have to fill out and explain which meat you are leaving behind with them. So, and as always, make sure that you're getting your tags ahead of time. You do not want to show up to Alaska and not have the proper tags in your pocket and then have to wait for Fish and Game to open up, or you lose another day of hunting. So make sure you plan at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance once you order those.
Yep. And I don't even have to say this, but you cannot research enough when it comes to Alaska. The bottom line is you're going to invest a ton of time, money, and energy in this hunt. You want to make the most of it. You know, we've got a lot of resources at Huntin Fool, articles, our YouTube channel. Again, we've got gear reviews, gear dumps, things like that, where we're trying to help people understand logistically what you should take and shouldn't take to Alaska. Also, a shout out again for onX Elite members. If you're not an Elite member, become one, because it also includes a Huntin Fool digital membership. You can slide over and check out our December e-mags that are chock full of information about, again, both Idaho and Alaska that we covered in this in much more detail than we covered here today. And then also, if you're going to Alaska on a research side, you have to download your offline maps on onX ahead of time. I can't tell you how many times I've gone on other hunts where it's like, oh, I don't have quite enough map coverage here. I can run out and get service somewhere, download my maps, and I'm good to go. In Alaska, that doesn't happen. When you shove off from shore on a boat or hop in a float plane or whatever else, if you don't have your onX maps ahead of time, you're going to be standing there at some point in time looking at your phone. You're going to be a blue dot on a blurry screen going, well, I know which direction camp is, and that's it. So you definitely want to download your offline maps ahead of time.
Yeah. Alaska is not a friendly place to get turned around in.
No.
So touch on that a little more too. Alaska is a wild place. You do want to have the right gear. It will make your hunt a lot more comfortable. It rains a lot. Everything's wet. There's a lot of things that like to poke you and grab you in Alaska. So make sure that the gear you have is, you know, up to date, whether it be your waders, your rain gear. And then having a satellite communication device is a must when you go to Alaska. Yep. Like Jared was saying, there is virtually no service once you leave the major cities. So you want to be able to have communication with your transporter, your outfitter, your hunting partner. It could really save your life. So and then as weird as it is, as hunts continue to go up in price, the demand is still surpassing that. So you want to plan early. A lot of these DIY transported opportunities are booking up years in advance. Some of the better transporters are booked through 2024, 2025. So again, we can help you do that research and help you plan those hunts. On the outside outfitted side of things, like we mentioned, the draw is not necessary unless you're looking at some of those more favorable brown bear, goat, or dull sheep areas. But a lot of times you can just literally plan your hunt with an outfitter and just go. They have access to those tags and can handle that. So don't wait around. Things are moving quickly. So
yep. Okay, well, we're going to move into Q&A. Before we do, again, your onX Elite membership entitles you to a full digital research Huntin Fool. Do not hesitate to take advantage of that. We've got phenomenal draw odds. We've got online magazine, previous tag holder list where we connect you with people who have drawn tough to draw tags in the past when you draw them. So you're already there. You're also entitled to a discount to any of our other memberships if you decide to upgrade as an Elite member. So don't hesitate to explore that. But with that said, let's move into some Q&A.
Awesome.
We're gonna have Jack take over.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to do, I'm going to have Sarah post the giveaway link in the chat right now for those folks that you can get entered to win some onX swag. So that'll be in there. And then I did have, when you were talking about Alaska, I thought of a question for myself because one of those black bear hunts is kind of on my list of hunts I'd like to do. Because of the difference with the regulatory year in Alaska, if you're putting in for the draw in December, correct me if I'm wrong, that would be for spring of 24, right?
Yeah, it would be fall of 23 if it's a fall hunt, or spring of 24. That's correct.
Okay, so just for anybody out there, if you're, applying, thinking Alaska next year for the draw, it would be 18 months away instead of 6 months away.
That's correct. And the draw results do come out early. It's usually like third week of February. So, you might think, oh, well, that's enough time that I could go ahead and go on that spring hunt, but you're correct. It's for the following spring.
All right. Couple of Idaho questions in here. Someone asked, what's the procedure for turning an Idaho OTC tag back in if you were to draw another tag in a different state and couldn't go?
Well, Idaho's not very friendly on that. You're going to eat the tag price unless you can find somebody to transfer it to that's willing to essentially pay double. I'm going to get.
They do allow, basically, if it's up before the start of the hunt, you can turn your tag back in Idaho now.
Oh, you can.
And basically, it's a fairly easy process. You have to fill out a form. Basically, when you release that tag, you cannot pick up another tag for that same species in the state that year. But they will give you your refund minus your hunting license, and then that tag will pop up in the turn back list later on.
See, I'm glad I disclaimed that I was a part-time hunt advisor at the start of this. Yeah, you do have to sign an affidavit that says that I will not hunt that species on any other tag in the state. That's right.
All right, another Idaho question, kind of along the same lines as the Alaska question I had earlier. Will the Idaho non-resident hunting license you buy now for the OTC tag be valid for the hunt next year? Or do you have to buy another hunting license, I guess, for next year? Is it a calendar year license, or is it like 365 days from the date of purchase?
Answer this.
Now, if you buy a hunting license, so let's say that you do not have a current hunting license in Idaho, you sign in on December 1 and you buy a tag, you put a tag in your cart. Idaho's going to say, oh, it's and for example, let's say it's an archery tag. Idaho's going to say, all right, you need a hunting license for this and you need an archery permit for this, or an archery stamp. They're going to force you to put both of those in your cart, and they are going to be valid for the following year. So you don't have to buy a hunting license in December that immediately expires and another one for the year that you're buying the tag.
That's good to know. That's kind of what I thought it would be, but makes sense to clarify. Let's see, what else do we have in here?
I will put a little caveat on that. I believe that it actually gives you the option of buying the current year hunting license or the future year. So it's on you to buy the future year, because for example, on December 1, there's some late archery tags like that Salmon Zone late archery unit 28 deer tag that goes December 1 to 31. I think it might not go clear to the 31st anymore, but either way, I think you might be buying it to go like on a mountain lion hunt or something like that. So just be sure that you specify the license year that you actually want the license to be valid for.
And they do have multi-year options like 2 and 3 year in there as well. So
another Idaho question. I know we were talking about deer and elk today, but can you talk a little bit about how bear tags, Idaho non-resident bear tags work? I know that's a great opportunity in that state as well.
yeah, most of the bear tags in Idaho are over the counter. There are a couple units over by Boise that are a controlled hunt but for the most part, they do have a spring and fall season. Most of them do not have a quota in place, and it's again an over-the-counter tag. There are some areas that you can purchase a second bear tag at a reduced price, which is like $41 for a non-resident, and those are like northern Idaho up in the Panhandle, and then a lot of the wilderness Frank Church areas there. So there are reduced price bear tags and areas you can get 2 tags in, and then your standard areas Most of those are a 1 bear area, and they're, what is the bear tag?
$231.75 for an adult. And then, yeah, it's $41.75 for the reduced bear or the second bear tag, which is a phenomenal deal if you're into hunting black bears.
Yeah, it's probably one of the, I would say it's probably one of the top states out west to look at if you're wanting to go do an over-the-counter bear hunt. So,
Excluding Alaska.
Every year I tell myself if I get my bear down in Montana early enough, since I'm in Missoula, it's less than an hour to Idaho, and the zone across there, you can get 2 tags. I
yeah.
tell myself if I can get my Montana bear, then I'll jump over to Idaho. But
And Idaho is another state that you can tag down in. So if you do have a deer tag and you're out on a hunt and you see a mega black bear and you want to shoot it, you can use your deer tag for that, as long as the seasons are, as long as it's within season.
Yep. Same for mountain lion. You can also kill a mountain lion on that deer or elk tag, but you have officially punched that tag. You can't do both on a single tag. You basically decided to burn it on a bear or a lion instead of a deer or an elk.
let's see, in Idaho, can I purchase both an OTC elk and deer tag, or am I limited to one species?
No, that's actually a really good question. We probably should have covered early on. Once you're in that shopping cart, don't miss your opportunity. If you want a deer tag and an elk tag, the time is right then. So you can load both in your cart and check out on one transaction with both an elk tag and a deer tag in your cart. If the quote is available, of course.
We'll do a couple more here. I really want to hunt moose. Is it better to put in for all the lower 48 or save my pennies and go to Alaska?
I'd say save your pennies and go to Alaska, with the exception of Idaho does have some decent draw odds for moose. You do have a pretty big upfront application fee, and they do sit on about $3,000 for a couple months there. Idaho has the best draw odds for moose in the lower 48. But the nice thing, I mean, when you go to Alaska, you're definitely hunting that next level species. So if you want a big moose, I would say save your pennies and plan an Alaska trip. If you just want any moose, you might gamble down here in the lower 48. So
yeah, and I'm with Isaiah. The only state that I would consider gambling on would be Idaho. Moose tags are so hard to draw in the other states that it's probably not even worth your time for the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong, I play in Montana every year and I play all over. So if you've got the budget and you got the passion and you want to hunt a Shiras moose, throw your hat in the ring. But Idaho is hands down the best state from a draw odds point of view, but you're going to be out of pocket close to $300, right around $300. And like Isaiah said, they're going to sit on almost $3,000 of your money on your credit card, because they do charge you up front for the tag fee for a couple of months until you find out whether you drew it or not. Why don't you talk a little bit about Canadian, though? I mean, that's not a terrible option. You got a mid-size and it's a lot better budget.
Well, Canadian is getting fairly expensive now, but you can go like Alberta, you can do a moose hunt in that 10 to 15 range and have a good chance at a 45 to 55 inch moose. Again, the logistics aren't as bad as getting to Alaska and all that. I mean, it's fairly close to Montana, so a lot of guys drive up there if they're going to plan on bringing their moose meat back. The BC stuff does get a little more expensive. Southern British Columbia, you're going to be in that 12 to 15 range, but once you get north towards the Yukon, the price does go up to that 18 to 25 range, because you are quote unquote hunting, Yukon size moose. So.
All right, well, we're about at our hour here. My lights just turned off. I'll be right back. You gotta love when they put the sensor for the automatic timers right outside of the door instead of inside of the door for you.
Yeah.
All right, so just wanted to wrap up and remind folks on the call that if you are an onX Elite member, activate your Huntin Fool digital membership. Take a look at that December e-magazine so you can get the lowdown on Idaho and Alaska. The folks do a great job there of breaking down your tag costs, breaking down, we had a few questions on, hey, which area should I go to? All that kind of information. It's kind of broken down in there. If you're not an elite member, upgrade now, activate that membership. It's well worth it just on that value alone, let alone all of the other elite benefits, different companies that we have in there, discounts on gear and things like that. Did want to also mention with your elite membership, you get access to draw odds through Top Rut. And I know they updated the Alaska draw odds today. So if you're thinking of applying, you can start looking at that information right now. Final plug for the giveaway. Make sure you click that link and enter. Winners will
Jack,
be notified. I'm sorry.
the link for the giveaway is not working. I need a new link.
The link is not working. Give me 1 second. I will have that for you in a second.
Quick note for those who are still listening, our EMAG for the current December issue will probably not be live for about 4 more days. I think it's going to go live on the 21st or the 22nd. You can look at last year's Alaska. You can look as far back as you want in our EMAGs. And we do Alaska every year in December because, again, it corresponds to the Alaska draw deadline. But the newest issue will go live probably on the 21st.
All right. I just posted the giveaway link in the chat, so it should be there. Should be working now. Apologies on that. Gotta love technology. And then finally, one more, the recording for this will be up on YouTube tomorrow morning, and everybody in the call will get an email tomorrow with that link tomorrow evening. So if you're, for some reason, you're not able to find it on the YouTube channel, we're going to email you a link anyway so that you have it for future reference. And with that, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you. We appreciate all the participants too.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. And we'll be doing more of these once we get into the new year, talking about other states. So stay tuned. Check our Masterclass page for when those go live, for when you can register for those. And we hope to see you in some of the future Masterclasses. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a great evening.